Are you ready for some fantasy football talk? Are you ready to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to join us on our live streams? Every podcast we do is live here on YouTube, including Fantasy Football Today and 5 at night, and live streams Tuesday night, 8 p.m., Thursday, today, 2 p.m. Eastern, Sunday morning right here, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. You got to hit that subscribe button. You got to like the video. Sit back, relax. Let's talk some fantasy football. We are into Week 11, and we've got big running back news to kick off the show, as we will look at the running backs in the Thursday night matchup. Adam Azer, Heath Cummings, and Jamie Eisenberg breaking down the AFC home games for Fantasy Week 11. A week that I thought maybe was crappy at running back, but Jamie said, what are you talking about? At quarterback. Jamie said, what are you talking about? It's great at quarterback. Did you mean that? As a guy looks a little crappy at quarterback to me.
I mean, you have the opportunity to start Tua, who I think is going to be great against the Jets. Cam, who's going to be good against the Washington football team. Justin Fields, who's going to be good against the Ravens. Jimmy Garoppolo could be good against the Jaguars. There are some very good streaming options for you available.
However, the non-streamers, are you feeling a little shaky about, say, Justin Herbert?
No, not at all.
Aaron Rodgers?
No, not at all.
Russell Wilson?
A little bit.
Okay.
You got one.
I think like the Herbert one, I've almost felt like I don't know why I'm not shakier on Herbert, but I'm pretty much feel fine with him.
They could be down in terms of the Steelers. TJ Watt, Joe Hayden, and Minka Fitzpatrick.
Right. Yeah, that helps.
I do think for me, it's Rodgers, Wilson, Hurts, and Burrow are all kind of a little iffy.
Why are you concerned about Rodgers?
Because I just kind of think that's where he lives in that QB 12-ish range. And he wasn't good last week, and now he's playing without Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
That's his number 2 wide receiver.
I mean, Minnesota's defense is so beat up and bad.
And who did not play well against them last week?
Herbert.
Exactly. All right. So, but for Rodgers, yeah, Heath hates it. He thinks Aaron Rodgers is like borderline Hall of Famer.
Never said that.
I love Rodgers, but he's practiced so little in the last couple of weeks, and he's got this toe injury now. I guess that's the only thing that really concerns me. I'll be starting him.
I mean, I would start Rodgers over. I said those 4 quarterbacks. He's my favorite of the Wilson, Burrow, Hurts group. But there's some streamers ahead of him for me.
Yeah, and it also looks like a Heath. Maybe I think you might get an agreement here. Loaded at running back this week.
I said it earlier in the week. It felt like when I was putting my rankings together that running back was deeper than wide receiver, which is just dumb. But that's the way that it felt. So yeah, there's a few starting running backs who are barely even in my top 24, which is something. We might have 25 running backs to start this week.
Okay, let's talk about Thursday night, and then we'll get into the start of the week and the players to avoid and all that. We got a question in the chat that I did not click. There it is. Should I take a shot at Nick Chubb, who's still on the reserve COVID list, or start Damian Harris, who will play tonight for the Patriots? Jamie, answer this question and then pivot to just your analysis of the Patriots running backs.
I think if these are the only options that I have and we get to the night game and he's still not activated off the reserve COVID-19 list, then you have to play it safe. But as we saw with, Rodgers and Noah Fant, and I'm trying to think of some other guys recently that were activated, I think it was like Friday and Saturday. Rodgers was obviously Saturday, but we knew that going in. But I think Fant was like Thursday or Friday last week where he was activated. If he doesn't get cleared and this is the only option that you have, then you have to play safe and start Damian Harris. But I would like to hopefully have another option available to me. Maybe you could trade Damian Harris for Dearness Johnson if you want to, if you're not, guaranteed to be starting Damian Harris week in, week out. In terms of the Patriots running backs, I think it's going to be a shared situation. I'm going to go opposite of what Dave and Heath have said the last couple of days. I think it's going to still be Ramondre Stevenson as the lead guy, but it's like a 55-45 split. It's going to be very close. They're both going to play. I think both have an opportunity to be really successful because they'll probably be playing with the lead. The Falcons' run defense has been bad. So I think both of these guys are borderline starters, but I'll still give a slight edge to Ramondre Stevenson. So when I update my rankings after our show here, I'll probably have Stevenson at like 25 and Harris like 26 or 24, 25, something like that.
Yeah, I really hadn't considered the possibility that Chubb might not get cleared, but I guess that's a possibility. I'll flip flop a little bit from what I said yesterday, because when I updated the projections this morning, I came out with Stevenson one spot ahead of Chubb, both of them right around that RB
Oh, wait.
24 range.
One spot ahead of Harris.
One
You
spot
love
ahead of
Stevenson.
Harris. Yes, not ahead of Chubb unless he doesn't play.
Right. Oh my gosh, I hope he plays. He's going to rush for 200 yards, Nick Chubb, if he plays. But all right, so they're low end starters.
22 and 23 for me.
When kind of like in the 25 range for Jamie. Is the starting Falcons running back the best running back in this game? Well, if it's Patterson, right?
If it's Patterson, yes. It would be Patterson, Patriots guys, rest of Falcons backfield. But if there's no Patterson, I would take both Patriots guys over Mike Davis and Wayne Gallman. There was the note yesterday about that Arthur Smith said the usage of Wayne Gallman was more related to the score and situation, why he played so much. But if there's no Patterson, they're going to play both guys. So
Right.
I don't care what happened last week.
Yeah, and I think like when you look at where Harris and Stevenson are, there are a lot of running backs that we just don't know about for Sunday that we're going to have to make tough decisions on. Like you have to start them both over either of the 49ers running backs right now, probably.
Unless you have both.
Unless you have both. I'm going to start both over Devontae Freeman. I'm going to start both over any of the Seattle backs. So,
Okay. Man, I still see do you really not see Mike Davis having at least 5 catches in this game? Because that's just what the Patriots do. They give up the receiving totals, and
that's 25 yards though for Mike Davis, the way he's played this year.
Okay. All right, but then if he gets another 25 rushing yards, then you've got a 10-point floor in PPR.
I've got him at RB 28. That's about where I have him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, then. That's your Thursday night update. Jamie, who do we love this week?
Tua Tagovailoa at the start of the week. Love the setup for him taking on the Jets. My only concern, obviously, is the finger. If he gets hurt and he has to leave the game. But we've seen him in the setup before, taking on Jacksonville and Atlanta. Very similar type of matchups where he had success against them, 25 or more points in those 2 games. And the Jets, the last month, have basically given up.
No, stop. They've given up.
Yes, there you go. 24 or more fantasy points to the last 5 quarterbacks that they faced. So this is Tua's time. I mean, past the trade deadline, had his moment in a primetime game, coming off the bench for Jacoby Brissett and getting 12 fantasy points in the second half of that game against Baltimore. I know the defense obviously is the big reason why they won that game, but, Tua led them on an important scoring drive. And so I like the setup for him. I wish he had his full complement of weapons, but I think with Waddle and Gesicki and Gaskin, he has enough, and whatever he'll get from Isaiah Ford and Albert Wilson. So it's a very good setup for Tua to have a big game.
How tempted were you to make Myles Gaskin the start of the week again?
I actually wasn't tempted. It's just so hard to trust him. That game where he was the start of the week, it was so frustrating because he had 1.7 yards per carry.
Yeah,
so
against Houston.
It's the Jets. They're bad. I'd start Gaskin, but I would not make him the start of the week twice. He's not worthy of being start of the week twice in one season.
Is that against the rules, or have you done that before?
No, I've done that before. There's usually been a little bit more of a gap as opposed to 2 weeks. I used Gaskin against the Texans, so but no, I've done it before.
Well, okay, really, you could have done that every other week for like the past 6 weeks, and you would have been right with Myles Gaskin. He's basically been a top 25 running back every other week, and I think
it's him. J.D. McKissick is very similar, also every other week for him. I think there's somebody else too that's an every other week
guy. How about Gaskin or a Thursday night guy?
Gaskin.
Yeah. Gaskin was going to be the player I love. Just relative to what he's done this season. I think he could be a top 15 running back against the Jets. They still don't have Malcolm Brown, so the workload's going to be there. The Jets defense is not any good at all. They hemorrhage passing yards to running backs. And so I fire up your Dolphins. Tua, Waddle, Gaskin, even 0-point Gesicki.
Goosecki.
Is Goosecki. That he's done that twice this year, right?
Week 1, yes, but that was, I think, more of a playing time issue.
Yeah, week 1 and week 10 against Baltimore. So Goose Eggy, is that too much of a stretch?
Goose Eggy,
Goose Eggy, right? Okay, let's go to the players to avoid. Heath, you ready? Players to avoid?
Of course, I'm not.
Why?
What? No, and I don't want to take one of the rankings disputes, but I'm pretty scared about Dawson Knox. The fact that he only got one target last week, and he's like, if you look at his first 7 games this year compared to Robert Tunyon's first 7 games last year, it's almost a carbon copy. I think Tunyon actually had one more catch and like 5 more yards, maybe same number of touchdowns, similar number of targets. I just don't know that he's anything more than a touchdown dependent streamer. And there's a goose egg potential every week.
Let's cool it with the goose egg thing. We can't use it for every tight end. Okay. He's facing the Colts. Jamie has him 10th and Heath has him 19th. Yes, this is a rankings dispute. So Jamie, more optimistic on Knox.
Yeah, I'm going to drop him a couple spots, but I still think you're looking at a guy that has a chance to score with a quarterback who's still playing very well. And I don't buy this Colts defense. You know, we've seen them, 4 touchdowns allowed to tight ends since week 5. So they do give up production to that position, especially when there's a guy that's featured. And so I think he's going to get back on track. You know, that was the shake the rust off game after being out 3 weeks with the hand injury. So I'll buy back into Dawson Knox as a low end starter, but not 10th.
Okay, so he'll be close.
I think Dave has him 5. So we'll fight about that on FFT at noon on CBS Sports HQ.
Dave has him what?
Last I looked, Dave had him 5th.
That must be a different D Knox. Now he does have him 5th. You're right. He has him ahead of Kyle Pitts and Mike Gesicki. Yeah, I would like to fight with Dave about that too. Please phone me in for that one. Before we get to the guys that Jamie might be avoiding, let's talk about our little start sit challenge on CBSSports.com. Go to CBSSports.com/start-sit to play. Each week, answer 10 start-sit questions to win a customized Trophy Smack Championship belt with your name engraved. And the overall winner for the season wins $1,000 and a guest appearance on the podcast. One question this week, we got Brandon Cooks against Tennessee. We have Antonio Gibson against Carolina, or we have Marquise Brown. Who do you like, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Gibson, or Marquise Brown in half PPR?
Marquise Brown by a significant margin.
Okay. He is at Chicago. All right, then. So
he's by the way, speaking of Antonio Gibson, he made me a trade offer of all of his injured players and Tyler Lockett for Jamar Chase, Antonio Gibson, and Hunter Renfrow.
To clarify, all of my injured players includes Aaron Jones. So
yes, he offered me Aaron Jones, Chase Claypool, and Tyler Lockett for Antonio Gibson, Jamar Chase, and Hunter Renfrow. I said no. But I countered with, if he needs running back, I gave him Antonio Gibson for Aaron Jones.
Seems fair to me.
What?
3 weeks you don't have Aaron Jones.
Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, but I like a guy who's playing.
Yeah, but you're 3-7. You need to win now, and you like Gibson this week.
Yeah. I'm probably not going to do it, but I do think, and I understand why Jamie doesn't want to do it, but Jamie's in the playoffs, and I'd rather have Aaron Jones than Antonio Gibson in the playoffs for sure. So you might have to give up a little bit extra to get Jones.
What league is this?
This is our draft-a-thon league.
St. Jude.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, because I'm if it was a league I'm in, I'm not in favor of you giving Jamie Aaron Jones for the playoffs. So
right.
No,
I'm not going to give Aaron Jones for the playoffs
just
for Gibson.
That's part of it.
Okay, Jamie, who are we avoiding this week?
I would avoid Antonio Gibson taking on the Panthers. As we've seen, Gibson is very touchdown dependent at this point, and I don't think they're going to have the luxury of giving him 20-plus carries. The Panthers have only given up 5 touchdowns, period, to running backs on the season, so they're very good at stopping opposing rushing games. And I just don't want to buy into Gibson after what he did against Tampa Bay. I think it was a very good performance. I was wrong about that, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong on this one. I think he's going to be a disappointing fantasy option this week.
I don't even think you were wrong about Gibson. You were wrong about the way the game played out. We all were. You know, just the fact that he was able to get 22 carries was a huge surprise, but it's not like he ran all over them or anything. So don't be too hard on yourself, Jamie. Okay.
I was crying for hours.
It's going to be hard to avoid Gibson just because he is a starting running back, but would you start Myles Gaskin over Antonio Gibson?
I would 100%. Certainly PPR, it's easy. But even a non-PPR, yes.
Okay, Thursday night, guys.
Well, that's a good one. No, you know what? I probably would. So I'll take that back. Where I said I was going to put the Patriots guys, I'm going to put them both out of Gibson.
I want to tell you guys about a sponsor, and I've used this sponsor. This is a tremendous service. You really need to be paying attention, particularly if you are selling anything online or if you are a small business owner or work for a small business. Please check out stamps.com. What an amazing time saver. And I'll tell you that last year, I want to say, it was either last year or 2 years ago, I had to go to the post office around sometime in December. Okay, we're getting to holiday time. That was a nightmare. You don't want to be stuck online basically for so long. Just do it. And I love the post office. Great. Amazing services, but there's crowds. You don't have to worry about that with stamps.com. Stamps.com lets you compare rates, print labels, and access exclusive discounts on UPS and USPS services all year long. It makes sense, especially if your business sends more mail and packages during the holidays. So if you're selling online or if you're running an office or a side hustle, Stamps.com can save you so much time and money and stress. And again, you can get all of the post office and UPS shipping services you need without taking the trip. And you get the discounts that you can't find anywhere else, like 40% off USPS rates and 76% off UPS. So again, go to the post office. They do a great job. But if you want to save the time, if you want to save the effort, and you want to get the discounts, you use stamps.com. And we've got an offer code for you. Sign up with the promo code FFT for a special offer that includes like getting a 4-week trial right now during holiday season. So listen to this. You get a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. And there are no long-term commitments or contracts. Sign up with the promo code FFT. Just go to stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter the code FFT. 4-week trial, free postage, digital scale. FFT on stamps.com. Click that microphone. We have so much to get to in terms of news and notes. So here's your quarterback news. We're going to look at the Miami and Jets game this week. Joe Flacco is going to start for the Jets. I'll be asking you this later, but you can answer it right now, and we'll get more in depth later. Who's your favorite running back in this game now that you know Flacco's starting for the Jets? Is it Gaskin or Carter?
Gaskin.
Yeah, I think that's Gaskin.
Okay. Jared Goff day-to-day with a strained oblique. Aaron Rodgers missed practice with a toe injury. He says he'll play. Cam Newton still has not officially been named the starter, but it seems very likely. NFL Network saying that it sounds like Ben Roethlisberger will play this week. He's got Sunday night game at the Chargers. Defensive injuries are huge in that game. A lot to keep an eye on. Injuries and COVID. Kyler Murray is making progress. Cross our fingers. Let's hope he gets out there. Cleveland is optimistic about Baker Mayfield playing this week. Nick Chubb, as we mentioned, still on the reserve COVID list, facing Detroit. You know, it doesn't really matter what the matchup is, but this could be just a great game for the starting running back for the Browns. Meanwhile, Kareem Hunt is not going to play this week, but is getting close to a return. Great news to see Alvin Kamara limited in practice on Wednesday. Let's keep that going. Hope he gets out there. Same with Miles Sanders. The practice window has been open. You guys are not ranking Sanders yet, are you?
No, because as we've seen, like with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, for example, you know, teams can still take their time with their guys coming off of IR, but it's a very encouraging sign. We thought initially from the first report that it would be 3 weeks, and this is the 3-week timetable. So, you know, hopefully Miles Sanders comes back. I just don't understand the narrative that we're hearing from Philadelphia media and some other people, you know, surrounding the team that Jordan Howard and Boston Scott are better for the Philadelphia Eagles right now than Miles Sanders because of he likes to look for the big play, and those guys are just taking what's available to them. I don't know. If I'm Nick Sirianni, I want to see what this run game looks like with Miles Sanders back there.
And he said that when Sanders is healthy, he's the starter. I don't know if he said anything about whether or not they're going to play two guys.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Miles Sanders. Latavius Murray. He practiced. Clyde Edwards-Helaire may not play this week. If you've been relying on Darrell Williams, you might get another game of Darrell Williams against Dallas. Looks like for the Giants, it looks like pretty much everyone is healthy except for Sterling Shepard. That would include Barkley, Tony Golladay, and left tackle Andrew Thomas. Maybe not Devontae Booker. Chris Carson missed practice. What is the deal? Heath, what do we know about Chris Carson?
He has a chronic neck injury, and he's trying to play football, and he's having a really hard time getting cleared to do that.
Okay. So Alex Collins still could be something.
I'm really skeptical that we're going to see Chris Carson as more than a a part-time back this year, but hopefully.
Kyle Shanahan still thinks that Eli Mitchell will play. James Robinson has a knee issue, but it's seemingly minor. He's expected to play. Looks like Dallas is getting Tyron Smith back this week, their left tackle. That's huge, literally. DeAndre Hopkins missed practice. Still don't know about him. I assume you haven't ranked DeAndre Hopkins yet?
Nope.
No, I think, with the Cardinals guys, you got to be really concerned that they're going to play because they have a bye in week 12.
Yeah.
And so Murray and Hopkins, they don't want to give up losses, clearly, but they also want to make sure those guys are right for the stretch run, for the playoffs, for them. And so, I would say you may not see these guys until week 13, which stinks.
Okay. Devontae Adams was limited. Alan Lazard missed practice. I'm sure Adams will be out there, but he has, I think, a shoulder injury now, shoulder issue. Cole Beasley missed practice. He's got this rib issue, and he barely played last week. Still had 8 catches. Minnesota safety Harrison Smith is off the reserve COVID list. Minnesota cornerback Patrick Peterson could come back as early as this week. Lamar Jackson missed practice with an illness, non-COVID. Dallas Goedert still in the concussion protocol. It looks like I'm probably going to have to play Hunter Henry over Dallas Goedert. Don't know if you can take that chance and wait for Goddard.
Yeah,
go
I want to go back.
Why
to
would
the
you not
Cole
consider
Beasley.
Henry anyway?
I'd rather start Goddard. I really like Dallas Goedert, but Henry's a decent fallback. He occasionally scores every game.
I just want to go back to the Cole Beasley thing. He did not have 8 catches last week.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the week before. Oh, that's right.
He had
last
2 catches for 15
2
yards.
catches. My bad. I'm sorry.
He only played 9 offensive snaps.
Yeah, he caught a pass on every snap but one. Now, sorry about that. Let's see. Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard missed practice for the Colts. We'll keep an eye on that. Neither Washington tight end, Seals Jones and Thomas, practiced yesterday. Seem a little bit optimistic for Logan Thomas. You got a beat up Chargers defense. So the Chargers defense is actually getting healthier in the secondary, but not on the defensive line, although Joey Bosa still has a chance to play. Man, Allen Robinson, Marquise Brown, Chase Claypool was limited. That's good. Robinson and Marquise Brown missed practice. I think we expect them as of now. Both starting Saints offensive tackles missed practice. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, who has like 75% rostered, which surprised me. He missed practice with a groin injury.
He actually left practice. So he got hurt during practice.
That's even worse.
Never good.
Yeah. But it was good to see Chase Claypool limited. He might play this week.
Yeah, the 3 positives I think you take from the injury report is Kamara coming back on a limited basis, Latavius Murray coming back on a limited basis, and Chase Claypool coming back on a limited basis. You'd like to have all 3 of those guys healthy for the remainder of the season.
And it sounded pretty likely, just to go back to the Chargers defense, because I do think that matters quite a bit. It sounded pretty likely that Bosa, he was not a positive. He was just a close contact, and he's already tested negative once. So,
and I believe he's not vaccinated, so his scenario changes.
He's not vaccinated, right? That's why he's out so long as a close contact. But he could be back, and he doesn't have COVID, so he should play. And so they got Samuel back last week. They got hopefully Michael Davis coming back. Yeah, Michael Davis practice in full. Another cornerback, he's coming back. Safety Nasir Adderley coming back. So the Chargers were so good against wide receivers. But the last 2 weeks, Devontae Smith, huge game. And Justin Jefferson, huge game. But they're probably going to be pretty healthy. So don't start Claypool, I guess. Rankings disputes. Joe Burrow at Las Vegas. 8th for Jamie, 6th for Dave, 13th for Heath. Jamie, start Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to judge him based on the Cincinnati game. He was obviously very consistent and productive prior to that matchup. I guess the Cleveland game, prior to that matchup in his last game before his bye. And I think we've seen this Raiders defense last week, certainly. I just feel like this team is falling apart. It's unfortunate for what's happening in Las Vegas. Losing Gruden, the way that it happened, unfolded, how that affected the locker room. Obviously, the Henry Ruggs situation. But 3 of the past 4 opposing quarterbacks against Las Vegas have scored at least 23 fantasy points. I'm going to buy back into what Burrow was doing. So I love the setup for Joe Burrow coming off his bye with everybody healthy offensively for them. I think Uzama scores. I think we're going to see, Jamar Chase and or T. Higgins, put up some big numbers, probably more so Chase. But I think this is a 3-touchdown game for Joe Burrow with a 250-yard performance on top of it.
He's 13th.
This one really stumped me because I don't know. I've been trying to figure out I don't know why I don't like Joe Burrow. I know why I like Tua. Why I have Tua over him. And he's kind of been in that QB 12 range, but I don't honestly have a great case against Joe Burrow other than the interceptions have been a bit of a problem lately. The pass volume has been hit or miss in games that they win. But he's a borderline starting quarterback, and 2 is the only streamer I'd start over him.
I was reading about Burrow on ESPN.com yesterday, and he has, let's see if I can get the exact quote. I think I deleted it, unfortunately, because I'm an idiot. He has attempted, I want to say he has the most pass attempts in tight windows. Basically, I don't remember the exact stat, but to sum it up, he's a gambler. He takes a lot of risks, and he throws into tight coverage a lot, and that's the primary source of his interceptions. But he also is throwing a ton of touchdowns. All right, so it looks like even Heath has him 13. It's not like he doesn't like Joe Burrow. Okay, we'll do a different rankings dispute here. We already did Dawson, Knox. How about Jordan Howard? Jamie's got Howard as a number 3 running back, just outside the top 24. Heath is like, nope, not even top 36. He's close to 40 for you. It's actually 44th in PPR. And I think you have Boston Scott ahead of him in PPR. Is that true?
I think I have Boston Scott 1 spot ahead of him, yeah.
Okay, so not interested in Jordan Howard. Obviously, if Miles Sanders plays, we're not going to be interested in Howard, I wouldn't think, but you are really not at all interested.
Well, it's obviously an awful matchup if your job is to run, period.
Run straight ahead.
I think it's probably more of a Boston Scott type situation. I didn't look for sure at last week, but I know Howard's snap share went down last week. I think Boston Scott has played more snaps than Jordan Howard every week. Even the weeks when Howard has had the success scoring the touchdowns on the ground, it's not been because he's playing a ton of snaps. He was at 38% last week. So I don't like the situation at all for a guy who's probably only going to play on rushing downs.
Yeah. Jamie's facing New Orleans, obviously the best run defense in football. And you're not exactly yelling to start Jordan Howard, but you at least have some hope.
No, I don't. I agree with you.
Okay. All right, then. Zach Ertz. He is 18th for Jamie, 17th in PPR. He's 11th for Heath. So, Jamie, sit Zach Ertz at Seattle.
Yeah, and clearly this will change if the quarterback situation changes for the Cardinals. But, I think we've seen enough of what this team looks like the last 2 games. But even if you go back 3 games for Zach Ertz, he had the game that I expected, which was against Houston, a good matchup, and it was show off the shiny new toy. And the targets have been there for him to a certain extent. But this is still such a crowded receiving core, even without DeAndre Hopkins on the field. And his production has just really been miserable for the last couple of weeks. He has failed to top 46 yards in each of the last 3 games, and he hasn't scored a touchdown. And so I'm just not buying Zach Ertz playing well in this matchup against Seattle, which has really turned the corner against tight ends. They've done a nice job since I think it's like week 4 or 5 of containing tight ends. Now, I haven't faced a lot of great tight ends, but I don't know if Zach Ertz still qualifies as a great tight end if Colt McCoy is throwing him passes.
Yeah, I think this is just like he is getting the targets, and he's going to get you 7 or 8 fantasy points without a touchdown. And if he scores a touchdown, he's probably a top 6 guy. And so that guy ends up closer to a starter for me than Dawson Knox, because 46 yards for Dawson Knox is a pretty good game.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess, Ertz is averaging 7 PPR points over his last 3 games, so that to me is not very exciting.
No, that's what I'm saying exactly. He's averaging 7 PPR points with 0 touchdowns over his last 3 games. That's a high-end number 2 if he doesn't score a touchdown. And if he scores a touchdown, it's a top 6 guy.
By the way, how funny, Jack Stahl is in your rankings, Heath.
Well, he's the only Eagles tight end right now.
Yeah, funny. 15th. All right, but you have Ertz over, you have one spot ahead of Conklin. You have him 2 spots ahead of Hunter Henry in full PPR. I assume Jamie would not do that.
Well, no. And I understand that completely. Hunter Henry scored like 17 touchdowns on 18 targets.
It's actually 18 touchdowns on 17 targets for Henry. Somehow.
Right. And 19 snaps.
All right. So, yeah, not the best round of rankings disputes. We could do Kirk Cousins again, but that'll be tomorrow's show. Indianapolis at Buffalo. Let's get to the games. We got 7 of them to look at today. So Colts at Bills, and, fun matchup here. But here's your stat of the game. Michael Pittman. So in tough matchups, and I'm using Rams, Ravens, and 49ers. He had 123 yards against the Rams, 89 yards and a touchdown at Baltimore, 105 yards and a touchdown at San Francisco in a deceiving game because he also drew at least 2 pass interference calls, I believe. So he could have had an even bigger game. He has the most yards of any wide receiver against the Rams, the second most against the Ravens behind Jamar Chase, the fourth most against the 49ers behind Adams, Kupp, and Quez Watkins. But Pittman, my point is, has done well in tough matchups. Jamie, this is probably the toughest. So starter sit Michael Pittman.
It's very difficult to sit a player like this because he's, capable, as we've seen, like with DK Metcalf against Marshawn Lattimore, of one play or, a couple of plays that still make him successful. But like you said, the Bills allow the fewest fantasy points to opposing tight ends. Tre'Davious White has been, a very good shadow corner for, perimeter receivers, and that's basically where Pittman has been. And in the 2 games that T.Y. Hilton has played, the majority of those games, Pittman's numbers have been, poor. They haven't been good. So I just don't love the setup for Pittman, but he's obviously still a starter in 3 receiver leagues, and most people play in 3 receiver leagues, rightfully so. But in 2 receiver leagues, you can get away from Michael Pittman, I think.
What was that rightfully so thing?
I don't know. I mean, most people play in 3 receiver leagues, right?
It's funny. It's just funny because we spent the first 5 minutes of yesterday's show talking about why I'm kind of over that format.
Well, Adam doesn't like 3 receivers, so it's not. Adam thinks it's wrongfully so.
No, because this is exactly why I don't like the format. Because you shouldn't have a format where I shouldn't say you shouldn't. I don't love the fact that Michael Pittman is just a start because this is a really tough matchup. This should be a tougher call. I just think that it makes it too easy. That's all.
I do think, yes.
I think it makes it harder.
Why? Because if it were a 2 receiver league, or I propose 2 receivers and 2 flexes instead of 3 receivers and 1,
you would still be starting Michael Pittman.
Okay. I mean, look, we all know what they can do to wide receivers. Deontay Johnson, 36 yards and a touchdown. McLaurin, 62 yards. Cooks, 47 yards. Tyreek Hill, 63 yards. Julio Jones, 59 yards. Jalen Waddle, 29 yards. Is it that easy of a call, Heath, to just start?
No, it's not that easy of a call. And I think it's important, like you talked about their tough matchups. Those matchups are nothing like the Bills at all. Those teams are giving up 20 to 25 fantasy points per game to wide receivers. The Bills are giving up 13. Like, they're not in the same stratosphere as this matchup.
And if Quentin Nelson is out, good luck Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I don't feel good about Pittman. I think I have him 25th or 26th. But like I said, it feels like running back is deeper than wide receiver this week. There are wide receivers I don't feel good about that I'm starting ahead of Michael Pittman.
On the other side of the spectrum, the Bills wide receivers, I don't know that we can trust Cole Beasley with the injury. Even with the 2 catches last week. I don't know if we can trust Cole Beasley, but Emmanuel Sanders. Now the Colts have been really bad against wide receivers. Would you start Emmanuel Sanders over Michael Pittman?
No, just because Sanders has been so bad, so there's an opportunity here. And I think this also, the Darius Leonard injury factors into Dawson Knox because the middle of the field will be different for the Colts if there's no Leonard out there. So maybe they run the ball more. Maybe they, lean on Dawson Knox or Sanders in that role if Beasley's not 100%. Gabriel Davis, we'll see some shot plays probably to him as well after what he showed you last week. But you could also see just a lot of Stephon Diggs. I mean, Josh Allen was perfectly comfortable going that route last week, and much more people are starting Stephon Diggs than anybody else in Buffalo.
Yeah, and I like there are names. I would start Hunter Renfrow in full PPR over Michael Pittman this week. And there are some big names who have been bad lately. Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, Mike Williams. I would start those guys over Michael Pittman.
McLaurin's got a horrible matchup too. I think people should really consider right now before the trade deadline with McLaurin. Stephon Gilmore is the number 2. He's only played 2 or 3 games, but he's the number 2 rated cornerback by PFF. So he's got Carolina and Philadelphia twice.
Is he okay?
Who, McLaurin?
No, he wasn't on the injury report. Okay, he left the game last week, but he's okay. So never mind.
So he's got Darius.
He actually was limited in practice yesterday.
Darius Slay twice and Stephon Gilmore. Seattle has been really good lately defensively. Las Vegas gives up the 5th fewest points to wide receivers. I've never really bought that. So I don't know. I just totally off subject, but important. I don't know how you guys feel about McLaurin since he's had 3 good games this year and he's got, I think, a pretty bad schedule going forward.
I mean, my whole feeling on McLaurin coming into the season was the quarterback, and the quarterback is not there. So yes, if you can sell Terry McLaurin, I would absolutely sell Terry McLaurin if you're still getting name value for him, because the production, like you said, has not been what we hoped.
Okay. So just going back to this Bills-Colts game, sit Wentz. You're going to start Jonathan Taylor, even though the Bills give up the fewest points to running backs, 3.67 yards per carry. And you're going to sit Hilton. You're going to sit the tight ends, the Colts tight ends. Josh Allen is top 2. I'll just be quick on this. Stephon Diggs is the only must start in the passing game. We already debated Dawson Knox. Jamie's got him top 12, borderline. Heath, not even close. Yeah, so let's talk about Singletary and Moss, and I guess Breida. Heath, are you starting a Bills running back?
I hope not. I would really, really not like to not do that. But if you're desperate, I would still start Singletary and Moss over Breida. I think I have Moss one spot higher in non and Singletary one spot higher in PPR. And 2 weeks ago, I thought Moss was the pass catching running back. So I like neither of these guys are in my top 30. I'd rather start Alex Collins without if Carson is out. I would obviously start Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, and Mike Davis if there's no Cordero Patterson over these two. I'd really like to not start them.
Okay, fairly easy game, except I'd say for Michael Pittman. And just to wrap it up on Emmanuel Sanders, did he even make your top 36?
He's in the range.
Yeah.
Okay. Heath has him about 30th. Jamie's closer to 40. There you go. Bills DST is not number 1, but still top 6.
I will say, though, if Leonard is out, Moss becomes more interesting because this feels like a game they should win. He's been their fourth quarter guy, chance to score. So Moss is my favorite Bills running back by far.
I do love the Bills, and I think they're the AFC favorite right now. They have had a really easy schedule. They have faced a lot of terrible offenses. So I'm curious to see if the Colts can do anything. They have faced the Chiefs, and they held them to 20 points. That was when the Chiefs were good. But Pittsburgh, the Dolphins twice, the Jets, Washington, Houston, Tennessee, Jacksonville. Cake schedule so far.
Give Tennessee a little more respect.
Yeah, and Tennessee won. Tennessee beat them on that,
So did Jacksonville.
So did Jacksonville. Tennessee won 34-31. Cincinnati at Las Vegas. This is an interesting game. And stat of the game number 1. I know Dave likes Uzama this week. A tight end has 70 yards or a touchdown in 7 straight games against Las Vegas. Now those are some good tight ends, though. You got not all of them. Gesicki, Fant, Goddard, Evan Ingram, Kelsey, Noah Gray, Donald Parham, Jared Cook, Jesper Horsted. Anyway, anybody like Uzama this week?
Yes. Non-PPR, he's a starter.
Knox or Uzama?
Knox.
Okay. That's coming from someone who likes Knox and someone who doesn't like Knox this week. Stat of the game number 2. A running back has scored 17 or more PPR fantasy points against the Bengals in 7 of 9 games. So they give up fantasy points. Josh Jacobs. Jamie, how much do you trust him?
Trust is a tough word with Josh Jacobs and the Raiders, but I think, you've seen enough of sample size that he'll work in the passing game. He's certainly their goal line option. So he's a number 2 running back. It's very hard to get away from what his workload will be. He was on the injury report on Wednesday, so just keep that in mind. But I think actually both guys are in play. This is one of the worst teams in terms of pass catching running backs. A lot of that was the Najee Harris game, I think, when he had 13 catches. But still, they're in the top 5 in receptions allowed to running backs. So it should help Jacobs. It should help Kenyon Drake, who's got I think it's 11 catches in the last 3 weeks. So I think Drake's a good flex, but Jacobs is still a top 20 running back.
Okay, Jacobs ahead of the Bills guys.
Yes. And the Patriots guys.
And the Patriots guys, okay. Josh Jacobs or Michael Pittman?
Jacobs.
Yeah, I might go Pittman and no, I'll go Jacobs in both.
Okay, let's go. So Mixon is a must start. Chase is a must start. Burrow, we've already debated. Jamie's got him 8th. Heath has him 13th. And the Raiders are 22nd against quarterbacks. And the good quarterbacks they face have usually done pretty well. T. Higgins is always tough. So Higgins or Pittman?
Higgins for me. It's 3 straight games of 13 PPR points, and 2 of those with at least 8 targets. So I hope that they come off their bye week and continue to give him that type of volume. The slot corner for the Raiders, Nate, I forget his last name, has done a really nice job. So Tyler Boyd is probably not going to do much. Go figure. So I think it's the perimeter guys that have the success here with Uzama as the red zone option. So I'm very fine with Higgins, better in PPR than non-PPR because he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 2. But it's a good opportunity for T. Higgins in PPR to be a borderline starter in 2 receiver leagues.
I feel like Higgins has been damn close to some touchdowns. He's an almost touchdown kind of guy lately. Heath, you like him?
I prefer Pittman, but they're in the same number 3 wide receiver range. I think it makes sense if you like Burrow more that you would like Higgins more.
Sure. The Raiders have been good at one thing. They do not give up big pass plays. Only 3 pass plays of 40-plus yards. That is 4th fewest in the NFL. And Uzama we talked about. And let's go to Derek Carr. It's been up and down. He usually throws 2 touchdowns. You can pretty much count on him for 2 touchdowns. He's done that in 7 of 9 games. Never more, though. That's why he's never that appealing.
So you should be a Raven.
Why they don't throw more than 2 touchdowns?
Never more.
You said never more.
Oh,
come on.
Okay, that's a literature thing.
Yes, Shakespeare.
Okay. That's a literature thing. Okay, I think for now on, I'll just make literature references because you gotta have the same connection to those that I do pop culture.
Let's do that. Wait, the Raven is not Shakespeare. Is that what you? Is that?
Not Shakespeare?
No,
it's not Shakespeare.
Edgar Allan Poe.
It's Edgar Allan Poe. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Adrian died. There you go. That's my mistake.
Okay. Yeah. Derek Carr. Anyway, starter sit. Derek Carr. Heath, starter sit.
I'm fine with him as a low end starter. I think he's probably going to be in that 20 to 25 fantasy point range. And I think that he's going to be in a situation where he needs to throw the ball a little bit in the second half. So I don't dislike him at all. He has had, I guess, I don't even know if he's had more bad games lately than he did early in the season. There's been a couple of bad games sprinkled in, but he's usually in that 22-point range.
Do you like Carr better than Burrow?
I think I have Carr just a couple spots ahead of Burrow.
I think the thing that was encouraging from Derek Carr's game against the Chiefs, so they used Deshaun Jackson. He's obviously not the same player at this point in his career as Henry Ruggs was, but he opened up things. You saw Bryan Edwards, if you watch the game, just the routes that he benefited from. I think, Darren Waller will start to benefit from it. This game feels like a shootout. I don't know what the projected total is. I haven't looked, but feels like it could be high scoring with how these 2 defenses have played lately. My guess is you said, Derek Carr will throw 2 touchdowns. My guess is going to be just based on every Raiders game that I've watched, which is most of them, that there'll be a 4th quarter opportunity for them to try and drive to win the game. And Carr will either get the score, which could be his 3rd one to get them to overtime, or he will not get the touchdown and they will lose the game. There'll be a mistake at the end of the game.
Total is 49.5. Thank you.
That feels about right.
Okay, and Derek Carr or Russell Wilson?
Carr.
Right now I have Wilson, I think 1 or 2 spots ahead, but I can certainly be talked into Derek Carr.
Adam fell asleep in English class, says little.
Apparently so did I.
Yeah.
I am moving I'm moving Burrow ahead of Wilson too. I've got Burrow up to 12. He might be 11 before the show's over.
If you have kids, you should turn the show off right now. I'm just going to tell you that I hate books and poems and literature, all that stuff. Absolutely hate. I'm just going to wait for the movie to come out. One of the only books I remember actually liking in school was Beowulf because it was really short and violent. And yeah, I just couldn't do it. I pretty much never read the books I was supposed to read. I just hated doing it. And
I think you were wrong to tell. I think people should rewind, bring their kids back into the room and listen to that section and say, kids, if you don't read, look what happens.
Yeah, no, I wish I had. Believe me, it's one of my biggest regrets. I wish I had been more interested.
When was the last time you read an entire book?
15 years ago. It was Anthony Kiedis's autobiography, the Red Hot Chili Peppers lead singer. I've read 2 sports books and those are pretty much the only books I've ever read for pleasure. I have a big Game of Thrones book that I'd like to crack open at some point though, with like the history of it. Okay. So anyway, Hunter Renfrow. Yes, it does. To be or not to be, Hunter Renfrow.
To be.
B. Absolutely B.
Okay. Brian Edwards.
But he's obviously more, you can't trust on the touchdowns. Can't count on the touchdowns. But non-PPR, he's a little risky. So PPR, he's still very, very safe.
What about Brian Edwards?
Risky. So, last week was great. Again, hopefully Deshaun Jackson changing some things opens up, opportunities for him. But you got to see it at least one more time.
Hunter Renfrow or Michael Pittman in a half PPR league? I know you said in full PPR you'd start Renfrow. What about half PPR?
Renfrow. I'd start Renfrow over Pittman and none.
Okay. Renfrow or Myles Gaskin?
Gaskin.
I think I'll go Gaskin.
Mm-hmm.
Full PPR, I'll take Renfrow.
Start Darren Waller. He's fine. This is his 16-game pace since week 1. Week 1, he had
16 games.
I've been over this before, but I'll say it again. Because, first of all, Pro Football Reference still does.
Laziness.
Okay. And 2, I think just I know what a good 16-game season is. We all know that. So we don't know. We haven't seen 17.
Did you skip math class too?
No, I love math. Since week 1, his 16-game pace is 78 catches, 889 yards, and only 2 touchdowns on 119 targets. A crazy low touchdown rate for Waller, and he has been very close to scoring. He's scoring this week. I'm telling you, he's scoring.
Did Cliff's Notes exist when you were
they
in school?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember that existing when I was in school.
Spark Notes. Oh, my gosh. I was all over that. I would go to Barnes & Noble to read the Cliff Notes. That was what I would do in high school. And let's go to Miami and the Jets.
Did you drive other people around while you were doing that too?
Probably. That was
no, that's when he dropped them off, go to Barnes & Noble, and then they'd call him when they were done.
You drop them off at the bar. You go to Barnes & Noble's, read Cliff Notes, and then come back again.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to read the Alexander Hamilton biography.
Yeah.
It's taken me 4 months. Have you seen that thing? It is like the Bible. Who could read that stuff? It's really interesting, the 3 pages I got to. Who could read that? Just watch a documentary. Or see the play.
Oh, my gosh.
Miami at the Jets. We've pretty much covered the stats of the game. But number 1, this is amazing. And this is why we like asking. 14 running backs have scored double-digit non-PPR fantasy points in 9 games against the Jets. It's like 1.5 a game. It's incredible. Stat of the game number 2, though, is this. The Dolphins, they used to be a layup for running backs. In their last 3 games, they are allowing 3.1 yards per carry to backs. They haven't allowed a rushing touchdown. It's hard to know if it's the competition or if it's the defense.
It's definitely the competition. The defense has played better, but the last 2 weeks, they haven't faced a good running back the last 2 weeks.
3 weeks. I really don't consider the Bills running backs to be good. So Bills, Texans.
Fair, if you want to put fine. But
Agreed.
the last 2 weeks, you're talking about bad running teams from the running back position. Baltimore's obviously a different running team, but their running backs haven't been good.
There's a couple of these. I'd put the Packers in the same discussion. Like this week is kind of going to decide in my mind how much they have improved versus early in the year. Are the Packers a team that you just don't want to start anybody against? Are the Dolphins like an above average defense now? I don't know for sure.
Yeah, the Packers the last 2 weeks have been against the Chiefs and the Seahawks, and they've been great. But
the Cardinals too 3 weeks ago. Yeah,
but no Hopkins for the most part, no Rodgers. Or sorry, they didn't have Devontae Adams. Mahomes, that was when the Chiefs were bad, and last week was Russell Wilson just being off. But I
love that we have these periods when the Chiefs were good and when the Chiefs were bad.
Yeah, but no, I think we're probably making too many excuses. I think they probably have a good defense, but they're really injured.
Yeah, but give the Pack. I certainly haven't given them enough respect, but give the Packers defense credit for part of the reason why the Chiefs were bad.
Exactly, yes. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I might put the Titans in the group too because the Titans have been quite a bit better lately defensively, and I don't know. They're still the worst team against wide receivers.
Right. All right. Well, listen, we've had very fun conversations today, but let's get back to starter sit. So I brought up that stat about the Dolphins' run defense. I want to know how you feel about Michael Carter. We got Joe Flacco starting. He made 4 starts for the Jets last year. Did not throw to the running backs much at all. So Heath, how do we feel about Carter now?
He was a high-end number 2 running back for me at the beginning of the week. He's more of a mid-range to low-end, but I still think he's likely to get 15 to 18 touches. and you pretty much start that guy. I would start him over Antonio Gibson. I would start him over the Patriots guys, over the Bills guys. The one I'm really, really struggling with right now, and it's probably just because of the name, is Saquon. Because I don't really expect him to get a full workload in his first football game in 6 weeks, especially with the way they're talking. And he's facing Tampa Bay. And even though Tampa Bay isn't as good against the run maybe as they were earlier in the year, it's still a worse matchup, I think, than the Dolphins.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been bad with Vita Vea on the field the last couple of weeks, so we'll see how things go without him there. I would start Saquon over. I agree with everything he says, except Saquon. I'd start Saquon over Carter. And just to go back to Flacco for a second, it was a different offense. So, LaFleur's offense is catered to using the running backs. Mike White did it on steroids. Flacco is probably going to be closer to Zach Wilson. But I still think, they've found some semblance of moving the ball when things are failing for them, and that's been working. So I don't think they go completely away from it. And
if the Dolphins defense is as good as they were last week, we might see Mike White by the second quarter. Like if they're putting that kind of pressure on a statue like Flacco, he's going to get destroyed.
Tua is 9th or 10th for everybody. Jamie, he's your start of the week. So who are the big names you're starting Tua over?
Russell Wilson. Trying to think of my rankings. Jalen Hurts.
Carr,
Burrow. No, I think I'm Burrow once by that. Trying to think who else is in that range.
All right, but not Rodgers.
No, I would start Rodgers over him.
Not Herbert.
No, the one I struggle with is Tannehill because of Tannehill's matchup. But I think this could be a more of a game managing Tannehill as opposed to go out and light up the Texans defense, where I think Tua is going to light up the Jets defense.
Okay,
I am all in. I've got him 7th now.
So. Oh wow, he's your start of the week. Start Gesicki. He's around 7th in non PPR, 5th or 6th for Jamie and Heath in full PPR. And who are the wide receivers that you like in this game?
Waddle for sure. Great opportunity for him against the Jets. I don't buy the Jets numbers in terms of against fantasy wide receivers. I think it's a myth. So I think Waddle has a big game. If you're desperate, Albert Wilson and Isaiah Ford showed some stuff last week, so you can go that route. But I think it's Waddle and then the Jets guys, and I would still put Davis ahead of Elijah Moore, and then Jamison Crowder's a distant 4th.
I actually kind of like Crowder or Davis as a number 3 wide receiver. I think Flacco will be better for him than Mike White probably was, assuming that he can stay in the game. So I would start Corey Davis over like Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley.
Here's an Azer stat for you.
Good.
Corey Davis has faced the Patriots twice. If you take out the Patriots games, he has 93 or more yards in 3 of 5 games. That's not really that bad. Corey Davis.
I like that Azer stat a lot.
Yeah, you just have to wonder, is Xavier Howard and Byron Jones back to being what they were expected to be?
Yes. Would you start Corey Davis or a Giants wide receiver?
Davis.
Would you start Corey Davis?
Unless Shepard plays.
Okay. Or Deontay Foreman or Corey Davis?
I would go Foreman in non-PPR.
Yeah, Davis and PPR. That's such a gross question. I'm kind of struggling with Davis against Kirk.
With Hopkins out?
Yeah.
And Kyler out?
Yeah.
Why don't we just say if Kyler's in, we go Kirk. If Kyler's out, we go Davis? Can we say that?
Okay.
I would go Kirk either way.
All right, we just say that too. Okay, that's we always get a ton of Waddle questions. So let me just do some waddling real quick. Waddle or Antonio Gibson?
Waddle for me in PPR.
And I'll go Gibson and on. Yeah.
Waddle or Michael Carter?
Waddle.
I think I'd probably go Carter. I would start Waddle over DJ Moore and Michael Pittman.
Would you start Waddle over Amari Cooper?
I would not.
Yes.
Okay. All right. A little split there. Take a quick break. When we come back, we got San Francisco at Jacksonville. Is the Jaguars defense for real? We'll talk about it right after this. Is the Jaguars defense for real? They've given up 2 touchdowns in their last 10 quarters. And that is Buffalo, Indianapolis, and I think the last 2 quarters of the Seattle game. They gave up 113 rushing yards to Jonathan Taylor last week. 93 of them came in the first quarter. So I don't know if that what that means to you, but it's a fact. I don't really have a good stat of the game here. I'll give you it later. It's on Brandon.
You just gave us like 3.
Okay, fine. That works for me. So yeah, I think for this game, the only tough call probably is Garoppolo. He's actually been playing pretty well lately. And obviously you're starting Kittle and Debo. Maybe Ayuk is a tough call. Heath, how do you see San Francisco in this game?
I like Garoppolo as a streamer if you can't get Tua. I am starting Debo and Kittle. Ayuk is a low-end number 3 wide receiver, but I do think he has sneaky upside. It's just that his floor is almost nothing. And I'm a little bit skeptical. Like I think we're probably going to get Mitchell playing. We'll probably put him back in the rankings. Hopefully today. Hopefully he has a full practice today, or at least more good information. But if it's Wilson and no Mitchell, that's kind of a tough call. I mean, it's really a tough call tonight.
What's that? Oh, a tough call tonight if you have a 49ers guy, right?
If you don't have a backup plan, I think you have to start both Patriots over him, and you have to consider Mike Davis in PPR.
It is a good run defense for the Jaguars, but why, Heath, are you so much more confident in Eli Mitchell than you would be in Jeff Wilson if Mitchell were out? Just think he's better.
I do think he's a little bit better, but I also don't have as like when Mitchell's played, he's been either all the touches or 20 plus touches. And there were a couple of games last year where they did that for Jeff Wilson, but for most of Wilson's career, anytime he's been a part of it, it's been a 2-guy attack. And he's only got 10 carries on the season. So I don't know that he would walk into a situation where he gets 20 touches in a good game script.
Okay. And
yeah,
Jamie,
I would buy if there's no Mitchell, I'd buy Wilson. I think the Jaguars defense has definitely played better, but this is more about the 49ers run game. And I'm not judging him based on 10 carries for 28 yards last week when Mitchell didn't run well either. He just got a lot more work. And so, you've seen Mitchell, it's basically 16 to 18 carries. I think that would be Wilson. It's clear they do not trust Trey Sermon. And JaMychal Hasty once again on the injury report with an ankle problem. So if it's Wilson and Sermon as the duo, I think Wilson's headed for a big workload, which will make him a pretty safe number 2 running back this week.
my stat on Brandon Ayuk was that he's had a 25%, 20%, and 20% target share in his last 3 games. Just not a lot of pass attempts for Jimmy Garoppolo. But
Ayuk actually has the better matchup if they're going to put Shaquille Griffin on Debo. Now, we know Debo is more of a gadget player that's having a monster. I don't want to minimize that by saying that, but we know he's going to do different things to get the ball. So it's a great spot for him. You're not getting away from Debo Samuel. But if they get into a situation where they can't throw to Debo to the same level of success, and you've seen what Griffin has done, it's A.J. Brown, tough matchup. DK Metcalf had 2 touchdowns, but 6 catches, 43 yards. Diggs was 6 for 85. Pittman was 5 for 71. So if we see, a spot where Samuel's not getting the ball, I think Ayuk is going to have some opportunities against Tyson Campbell.
any hesitation with James Robinson?
I mean, a little bit, just based on the fact that he showed up with a knee injury on the injury report. It seems like it's just minor, and they're keeping an eye on it. But if he's playing, I'm playing him. There's no way you're getting around James Robinson, especially with what the running back position looks like this week.
I'm a little, maybe slightly more concerned than Jamie is. I would start Gaskin over him in PPR.
All right. And how about Agnew and Dan Arnold? I mean, Dan Arnold is a start at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, not an easy matchup, but you're starting Arnold. I think we just kind of sum up the Jaguars receivers by just saying Ag-ew. It's just bad. They're just bad.
So we're not starting Agnew.
He would be my favorite Jaguars receiver, but no, I would prefer to stay away from him.
End
Boom,
of
bust flex.
San Francisco DST is certainly in play. 3rd for Heath, 7th for Jamie, 10th for Dave. Okay. Pittsburgh at the Chargers. So
Heath, can you name the 2 kickers in that game? Jacksonville and San Francisco.
The 2 kickers, Robbie Gould and Matthew Wright.
Good job.
Yeah, all right. So Pittsburgh at the Chargers. The injuries, I have to look up the DST that Heath is too low on. So while I do that, Jamie, talk about how the injuries on defense and the COVID situations on defense are factoring in with this game.
The Steelers-Chargers game?
Yes.
The Chargers one, you mentioned it. I think the big one is obviously Joey Bosa, but Jerry Tillery, something to keep an eye on there. But you're not getting away from the main guys for Pittsburgh, no matter who the quarterback is. So Roethlisberger plays. It's a boost for Deontay Johnson, but you're still starting him. Chase Claypool plays. I still think at best he's number 3 receiver. And Pat Freiermuth is still a starting tight end, especially if Roethlisberger's back. The Chargers have been bad against tight ends for the majority of the season. And then the Steelers' injuries are the more concerning ones for me. TJ Watt, if he doesn't play with the hip and knee injury, Minka Fitzpatrick is almost certainly out with the COVID situation, and Joe Hayden's dealing with foot injury. So that should really be good for the Chargers passing game. And hopefully it's a Mike Williams bounce back game. Keenan Allen continues to do what he does. And, Austin Eckler's a must start guy no matter what.
Okay. Heath is, first of all, way too high in the Buccaneers having the number 1. I take that as a personal insult, but way too low on the Miami Dolphins. Ninth. Jamie's got the Dolphins second.
He's a Joe Flacco guy. I mean, they both have great mustaches.
That's true.
Almost every week we've done this, it's been the defense facing the Jets.
Oh, but yep, you're 100% right. Yep, absolutely. And they burn me every time. All right, so this game, Pittsburgh at the Chargers. Here's my stat of the game. I really couldn't find one. Najee Harris is good, and the Chargers' run defense is bad. That's my stat of the game. This game has a lot of obvious starts and sits, right? Harris and Eckler, even though Eckler's been struggling a little bit lately, you're starting them. How are you getting away from Keenan Allen? How are you getting away from Deontay Johnson? I would say if Mason Rudolph plays, are you sitting Deontay Johnson?
No.
Okay. He really hasn't been so great lately. His PPR fantasy points in his last 5 games are certainly worth starting, but 15, 18, 15, 11, 13. It's been a good, not a great player. He just hasn't scored in a while. All right. So then the tough calls are what? Claypool, Freiermuth, Mike Williams. Oh, and Herbert. I'm sorry. We'll do Herbert after. But in terms of Claypool, Freiermuth, Mike Williams,
I think it's just Mike Williams is a tough call.
Claypool's a sit.
I don't want to trust Claypool.
Yeah.
All right. That makes sense.
And I'm probably just going to start Mike Williams one more week and feel dumb if he busts, but they're trying so hard to get him into the end zone. He gets target after target inside the 10-yard line.
I understand, but it's only 5 targets a game. It's like 4 of his last 5 games.
I think if all 3 of those guys are out for the Steelers, there's a lot to like about Mike Williams. I don't know if Mike Williams is healthy. You go back, I think it was the Baltimore game that he was supposed to miss. Remember, he didn't practice all week, and then he played.
They said he's not healthy. They said it's not a factor. His own coach said that.
But he just hasn't been right since then. And so, if you're trying to find some reason for what's gone wrong, is it that? Is it, Herbert doesn't trust him anymore? Is it the offense doesn't, the coaching staff doesn't trust him anymore? Something's going wrong with him because he's not getting the opportunities. It's just he's not making plays, not getting targets, like you said, Adam. So I'll buy back into him for one more week, but it's more of a who else do I have? Like I have him in 2 leagues. One, I'm definitely not playing him. I only have to play. This is a weird format where I play 2 receivers and a flex and only 1 running back. So he's not cracking that lineup. And then the other league, it's where I have Cooper Kupp on a bye, and Mike Williams has been in a rotation as the second guy, so I'm going to play him in place of Kupp. But I hope that he scores. It's a good opportunity because we've seen the Steelers not be great against receivers all season. And now you're taking potentially Fitzpatrick and Hayden out of the secondary and their best pass rusher off the field. So if those 3 guys are missing, then the Chargers offense should be really good.
What if they're not, though? What if Watt plays? Offensive line too. It would be
a slight downgrade for Herbert, but I'd still start him, and it'd be a slight downgrade, I think, for Williams, but I'd still start him. But I think it's more about the whole package. If they're missing any of these 3 guys, they're with Cam Hayward, you could argue and I guess Bush that those are their best defenders.
So you wouldn't play Corey Davis over Mike Williams?
No,
I feel like I should.
Play Mike Williams over Pittman.
How about Jalen Waddle and Hunter Renfrow?
Easy.
Yeah, over Williams. Yeah.
Okay. How about
PPR? It's tougher, but PPR for sure.
What about running backs like Deontay Foreman or Mike Williams? Sorry, or Deontay Foreman.
I'd still stick with Williams.
Yeah.
And do you trust Freiermuth if Mason Rudolph plays?
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I'll take it back. Trust,
yeah.
no. Start, yes.
exactly. It's exactly what I was going to say.
I mean, you could go with a Dan Arnold or a Conklin or an Evan Ingram or something like that. I mean,
I
where
would probably
you
go with Arnold over him if it was Mason Rudolph. Yes.
I would go with Arnold over Freiermuth in PPR if it's Ben.
Okay.
In non-PPR, it's Freiermuth.
How about Justin Herbert? I don't know if there's anything else you want to say. It's just the injuries that have you guys encouraged because, he's been 16 or fewer fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games.
It's absolutely injuries. If Pittsburgh was 100% healthy, I'd be much more concerned.
Okay. All right. So you did either of you get to Tua over Herbert?
No.
No.
I have him back to back.
And you don't want to miss that 35-point game like he had at Philadelphia just a couple of weeks ago. I think that wraps it up for this game. Let's go to.
Oh, my cousin Vinny was on there, and I watched it again.
Me too. Finish with this guy
on Paramount.
Yep.
Paramount's
great, man. They got great movies all the time.
Yep.
By the way, I didn't think I was going to get to this point because I didn't really like the first episode. I was disturbed by it, but yeah, I'm hooked on Squid Game. I forgot. Did you guys watch it?
Not yet.
You do it. No,
it's not a thing for me, right?
No, you know what? Like, it's a damn good show, except I think the violence is gratuitous. It's just disturbing. But
I'll probably just read a book instead.
Everything that's not violence is actually really good and very compelling. All right, Detroit at Cleveland. We got 2 games left. We got Detroit at Cleveland and Houston.
I don't read the books.
Detroit at Cleveland.
Me no read.
I have a stat of the game. Oh, I couldn't tell who it was about, but now I know who it's about. DeAndre Swift. Heath made a great point to point out that Dan Campbell took over the play calling duties and things kind of changed, but he still had 6 targets at Pittsburgh, and that was with Jared Goff throwing 25 passes. So the possibility maybe of a workhorse back and involved in the passing game, I know it was weird they had 5 receiving yards.
Well,
still got the targets.
There was this thing, and Pete talked about it multiple times early in the season on FFT about how Anthony Lynn liked Jamal Williams, and Jamal Williams didn't play last week. But it did seem like we had the Campbell quote early in the year about how they have to get the ball to DeAndre Swift more. And then there was the Anthony Lynn likes Jamal Williams thing. And then the first game where Dan Campbell calls plays, DeAndre Swift gets 36 touches. I'm not sure he can play the rest of the season with Dan Campbell calling plays because he might get just destroyed. But I think DeAndre Swift's going to get a lot of touches as long as Dan Campbell is calling plays.
Is there anything tricky in this game?
I guess the only tricky thing would be are you still confident in TJ Hawkinson?
Yeah, we can get to Jarvis Landry in a second too. But yes, are you still confident in TJ Hawkinson? He had a game in week 5 where he had 2 catches for 22 yards on 3 targets. And in his following 3 games, 11 targets, 9 targets, 11 targets. So you hope for that same kind of response after a 1-target game at Pittsburgh. Are you confident?
Yeah, I would hope so. I also don't think that they're going to be competitive in this game early if the Browns run game is doing what the Browns run game typically does and the Browns defense shows up, especially if it's Tim Boyle starting at quarterback for Detroit. One thing that I think it's not just the play calling for Dan Campbell. Their offensive line's finally healthy. The group that they were expecting to have early in the season is there for Detroit. So that's big, which I think helped tremendously against Pittsburgh. But look, if the Browns, this feels like, what the Browns do. They come off a loss and they bounce back and they play well. Go back to the Bengals game, when the first time they got rid of Odell Beckham and how they performed against Cincinnati. So I think they're going to have their way with Detroit, and I think it's going to be a little bit tough for the Lions offensively, but you're not benching DeAndre Swift.
No, but Hawkinson, are you benching?
Or Hawkinson. I think Hawkinson's still a starting tight end. You got to have a lot of faith, in either have picked up Hunter Henry along the way and you want to trust, the touchdown potential there tonight, or, Dan Arnold in PPR. But I still think most people that have had Hawkinson, I have Hawkinson obviously in a couple leagues. I'm not benching him in this matchup.
Okay. And then Heath, any interest in Jarvis Landry or Donovan Peoples-Jones?
I have a little bit. The Donovan Peoples-Jones injury thing, we obviously have to keep an eye on that. If he's not at practice today, then I'll probably just cancel that interest. But I do think Jarvis Landry, like compared to any of the wide receivers in tonight's game, I would probably rather start him over all those guys. He's right in that Jacoby Myers range. I like the fact that he's had 18 targets over the past 2 weeks. It's too bad that he's not really done anything with them, but I don't mind him as a number 3.
Landry was talking about not getting the ball.
Yeah.
Squeaky wheel game coming.
He also talked about how he's not healthy, though. And we know he's just playing so beat up. The Lions suck. They also
that's the question I have too, because DK was talking about get your playmakers the ball. Does the squeaky wheel game count if you're actually getting a ton of targets?
It's a good point.
Landry has 18 targets over the past 2 weeks. What are you complaining about? Do something with them.
I agree. Wait, does he have 18?
That seems high.
Or are we going in reverse order?
Yeah, you're going in reverse.
Come on, put the top games. I trust your notes.
First of all, thank you for reading the notes. I do appreciate that.
I live by the notes.
Landry's got 10 targets the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
No, I was reading Adam's notes in the wrong order.
I would
Last 4 games, I assumed the top 2 games were the 2 most recent.
No, I never do it that way.
Adam was writing in Hebrew. He was going left to right.
Yeah.
Well, how would you write that? If you were going to write out the last 4 games for someone, Jamie,
I want the most recent game on top.
The most recent on top or most recent on the bottom?
Most recent on the bottom.
Of course. Come on. So his targets have been 8, 10, 5, and 5 over the last 4 games. Detroit gives up a lot of big pass plays. It's kind of their thing. And they've allowed 90
scores this week.
All right.
I like it.
Okay. Any interest in Austin Hooper? He's got 6, 2, and 5 targets in his last 3 games.
Which 3? 3 games ago he had 6, or 3 games ago he had 5?
3 games ago he had 6. You know, like Rocky 6 when Adrian was resurrected.
I think I still have Njoku ahead of Hooper.
All right, Houston at Tennessee.
We're still more games?
Talk about big plays. David Njoku makes big plays. If there's no Donovan Peoples-Jones, I might like Njoku a little more as a DFS play.
Okay. I think Adam.
I think we just reiterate, if there's no Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson is a superstar.
Yeah.
Super duper star.
Houston at Tennessee. Stat of the game. Everyone scores. The Texans have played 9 games. A running back has scored in 7 of them. The two exceptions were Jacksonville in week 1, where James Robinson got 5 carries, and Carolina in week, I want to say 3, when Christian McCaffrey left with an injury. So everyone scores. We're hoping Deontay Foreman starts to take over a little bit. Heath, what's holding you back from moving Foreman up in your rankings?
And would you pay attention? At the beginning of the show, we said Deontay Foreman's not a rankings dispute anymore because I moved him up to 24th. We talked about how Jeremy McNichols is in the concussion protocol, and none of us knew that until yesterday. And so I like Deontay Foreman as a borderline number 2 running back.
So my problem, the reason why I forgot is because when I think about what was said on the show, I go from the end of the show to the beginning of the show. As I try to recall.
I understand. That makes sense.
All right, so Jamie, where do you have Foreman now? Is Heath the high guy on Foreman now with 24?
He might be. He's not far from me. I also have not removed McNichols yet because the show is taking 6 hours. So Foreman is a borderline starter as long as McNichols misses the game. But even so, he's a strong flex play. I think it's the takeover happens this week.
All right, Brandon.
You also would like to know a mistake that Heath made in looking at something. He thought that this was a homecoming game for Adrian Peterson this week.
That's right.
Adam was on that show too, but he'd already forgotten that as well.
No, I remember. So we like Foreman as a low end starter. Stat of the game number 2: the Texans allow the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends, and Ryan Tannehill has thrown a touchdown to a tight end in 4 straight games. 2 to Pruitt, 2 to Swaim. You can have fun with that one. Probably not going to use them, but don't be shocked if a tight end scores. Brandon Cooks, big game, must start.
Yes, must start. Obviously, the quarterback was different last year, but in the 2 games against the Titans, you know what his numbers are?
No.
20 catches, 234 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, start Brandon Cooks, start AJ Brown. I think I'm surprised that you guys have Ryan Tannehill as high as you do. That was actually what inspired me to say that it was a crummy week for quarterbacks. If he's top 12, he's 7th or 8th for Heath now, something like that.
Our projections have him like top 5 too on Sportsline.
Just hasn't really earned that. He's only had 2 good games. They've been both against the Colts.
I know I saw the last month, and I'm going to pull this up, he has been like I think he's been a top. I mean, I don't know exactly what it was, so I'm going to pull it up. But one thing he's had a lot of is rushing touchdowns.
Yes.
And he has taken over a little bit more of the outside runs inside the 5-yard line, I think, because they don't exactly have guys to run those types of plays right now. So I like his chances to get in the end zone on the ground.
Yeah, he scored 4 of his past 5 games. He scored a rushing touchdown, but he's been 20 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. Not a very high ceiling in those games, but at least he's gotten you to 20. And again, history. If we're looking at Brandon Cook's history in this matchup, Tannehill's history in this matchup, he averages 28.5 fantasy points per game against Houston his past 4 games against them.
Since week 7, Matthew Stafford is the only quarterback who has scored more fantasy points than Ryan Tannehill in 4 points per passing touchdown leagues.
Huh. Interesting. Okay, so Tannehill or Russ?
Tannehill
or, well, I know you're going to take him over Carr. He's going to be close with Tua. Yeah, I think I pretty much know where he hurts. Or Tannehill.
Tannehill.
And anyone else that's not obvious? I mean, Marcus Johnson had 100 yards last week. He has 160 for the season.
I want him on my bench. He has a 20% target share in the last 3 games without Julio. I think he's a good DFS play where he's cheap. I know on FanDuel his price was bumped up a little too much. He's already 5,600, but great matchup, good volume, and Vrabel was praising him in the press conference last week.
And any interest in a Texans running back?
No.
Okay. All right. Go do your thing. Get out of here now, Jamie. By the
We're
way,
done?
if the show is too long, make sure you read the Cliff Notes or just check the timestamps.
Oh, you're working on that joke.
Wait until the movie comes out.
about 5 minutes, right at the start of this game when you were saying how long the show was taking. It was a long one, but a very good one. Much appreciated. We'll talk to you 2 p.m. on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. If you have any start-sit questions,
The Wood hates your show.
Ask them there. The Wood hates our show. Inside joke. We'll